For nearly as long as musicians have been rockin' and rollin', losing beloved rock stars has been an all too common part of the chaotic culture. However, some stars' deaths are weirder than others. Ozzy Osbourne was already famous when he hired Randy Rhoads as his new guitarist within seconds of meeting him. Rhoads, who had previously been one of the founding members of Quiet Riot, played on some of the most classic Ozzy albums, including Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, and most notably the song Crazy Train. While his accomplishments were enough to see Rhoads inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2021, sadly, he was only in Ozzy's band for a couple of years before he died. While on tour, the band's bus stopped for a rest at a lot that held some small planes. The tour bus driver, Andrew Aycock, was also a pilot and decided to take a couple of flights. Despite being afraid of flying, the 25-year-old Rhoads was a passenger on the final one, along with the band's 58-year-old seamstress, Rachel Youngblood. On his previous flights, Aycock had flown closely over the tour bus, trying to wake up the people sleeping inside it. Sadly, this time around, the prank went wrong and the plane's wing clipped the bus. The collision caused the plane to crash, killing all 3 of the people inside. However, according to Louder, there are other theories on the accident. Witnesses say Aycock might have been trying to crash deliberately, and Rhoads was attempting to stop him. Or that Youngblood had a heart attack and fell on the controls, causing the plane to nosedive. Unfortunately, the true reason will forever remain unknown.
If he hadn't got killed when he did, he would be up there with the big guys.
Bobby Fuller had been playing music since he was a kid in Texas, and by 1966, he and his band, the Bobby Fuller 4, had a top 10 hit with I Fought the Law. They were famous and going places, although this was marred by annoyance at their manager and his many strange ideas for publicity stunts. Otherwise, according to Fuller's loved ones, he was happy. However, on July 18, 1966, Fuller was found dead in his car covered in gasoline at the age of 23. Witnesses say he had injuries like he'd been in a fight, and that his car hadn't been in the parking lot where it was found just minutes before, even though he had been dead for hours. If this wasn't weird enough, officials didn't seem to agree on why Fuller ended up dead. While several obituaries in major newspapers implied that he had died by suicide, the official report determined it was accidental. However, even that wasn't conclusive, as the report also had a question mark next to the boxes for both suicide and accident. The debate about whether Fuller's death was suicide, accident, or murder has raged for decades. Fuller's strange death was even included in the October 18, 1996 broadcast of Unsolved Mysteries, and although at least one person connected to him contacted the tip line afterward, the truth about his passing remains unknown. When Chicago was inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2016, original member Terry Kath wasn't there, but was not forgotten, as co-founder Lee Loughnane told the Metro. Through the years, his guitar playing has been overlooked, probably because he was in such a large band. But if Terry had been in a trio, he probably would have been right up there with Jimi Hendrix, who idolized Terry. Kath seemed to be aware of this as well, since he was planning on releasing a solo album before he died on January 23, 1978. His friend and fellow musician Joe Walsh told Rolling Stone, "With that band dynamic in Chicago, he needed to do a solo album. I don't know how much of it was recorded, but he was going in that direction. And it's a shame it didn't happen. He would have never remotely thought about suicide. That was a complete accident." Suicide or accident has always been the question surrounding Kath's bizarre death. The musician was deep into drugs and also loved guns, which is never a good combination. When he died, he was handling firearms which he assured the person he was with were unloaded.
He ejected all the bullets out of the gun. Then he let the clip go, left one in the chamber.
According to Louder, his last words were supposedly, "What do you think I'm going to do, blow my brains out?" Sadly, the gun went off. Kath was 31 years old. Dimebag Darrell Abbott was a founding member of Pantera, the incredibly popular metal band. They formed in 1981, but in the 21st century, the band split up, and Abbott started a new band called Damage Plan. In 2004, Damage Plan was playing a gig in Cincinnati, Ohio, when a man named Nathan Gale jumped on stage. He damaged thousands of dollars in equipment and fought with security before being removed. The police were called, but no charges were filed because the band thought it would be too inconvenient to return for the court date. 8 months later, Gale showed up at another Damage Plan concert in Columbus. Some people present noticed him as soon as he entered the venue from a side entrance and raced towards the stage. As Billy Payne of Volume Dealer, another band on the bill that night, told Rolling Stone, "The dude was way determined. He was on a mission. He looked angry. He was walking like he was going into battle." Gale got on stage, pulled out a gun, and confronted Abbott. Joe Dameron, Volume Dealer's bass player, said Gale looked to be saying something, but he couldn't hear what. Gale then shot Abbott, but at first it wasn't clear how serious the situation was. A security guard present said, "I thought they were playing a big gimmick. People were pumping their fists, thinking it was a hoax." When people finally started to intervene, Gale shot and killed 3 of them. Sadly, Abbott did not make it either. He was 38. A cellist trained at the Royal Academy of Music may not sound like your standard rock star, but Mike Edwards was an original member of the Electric Light Orchestra. He played with them from 1972 to 1975, a period that encompassed 4 albums and 2 top 10 hits on the UK charts. Edwards was a big hit with fans, standing out for his kooky outfits and the bits he did on tour, such as playing the cello with a piece of fruit and pretending to play his cello before it exploded. He eventually left the band but continued to play music, and his death fit right in with his strange stage persona. On September 3, 2010, the 62-year-old was killed in a freak accident when a 1,300-pound hay bale rolled off a tractor and into a road. It then slammed into Edwards' car, crushing it. At the time of his death, Edwards was playing with a local group called Devon Baroque, and fellow member Jasper Solomon told BBC News, "Mike's talent was his musicality. He could range over all genres from classical to jazz, modern to medieval Renaissance. He lived for his music, and it showed." The chairman of the music group, Angus Gordon, said, "He was simply the nicest guy and a brilliant musician. He taught the cello, and his incredible patience and encouragement, even with the slowest of students, made him a very good teacher." Everyone knows there's a long list of stars who died at age 27, but Les Harvey's inclusion on the list has to be one of the most surprising. He was in several bands in the UK before joining one called Power, which was renamed one night in 1969 by Led Zeppelin's manager. From then on, the iconic Scottish band was known as Stone the Crows, and their albums are still popular re-releases many decades later. On May 3, 1972, the group was preparing to perform at a gig in Wales. Some 1,200 people were in the audience, and according to contemporary reporting, some of them decided to take souvenirs in the form of wires out of the band's electronics before they took to the stage. This, of course, caused technical problems, which took time to fix. Harvey came on stage to explain the delay when disaster struck. As drummer Colin Allen explained to Louder, "We heard this deep humming sound. Leslie had the microphone in one hand and his guitar in the other. They kind of went together, and then like an arc shape appeared. I was up really quickly and kicked the guitar out of his hand as he was lying on the floor." The accident was caused because a ground wire to the microphone had not been fixed, and when Harvey touched his metal guitar strings, he closed the circuit. He died a short time later in the hospital, aged 27. Philip Taylor Kramer joined the band Iron Butterfly in 1974 and played bass on 2 of their albums. After he left the band, he went on to become a rocket scientist and then an important figure in the booming computer industry of the early 1990s. But on February 12, 1995, he vanished. Kramer went to pick up a business associate and their partner from the airport, but left before meeting them. Chuck Carter, a private investigator hired by Kramer's family, told the LA Times, "Something happened during that time, either in his head or at the terminal, that made him turn away. And I'll tell you, I haven't a clue. The guy didn't have an enemy. The guy was a dedicated family man."
There's no indication that there's another woman involved. There's no indication of alcohol or drugs or anything of that nature.
What we do know is that Kramer started calling loved ones to say goodbye. Then he called 911 and announced he was going to kill himself and said, "I want everyone to know O.J. Simpson is innocent. They did it." According to the debrief, Kramer was expected to contribute expert testimony at Simpson's trial. However, in 1999, Kramer's van and remains were discovered at the bottom of a canyon. It can't be proven if he died by suicide, and theories of foul play still abound. Some think he might have been threatened over one of his new software programs, but we'll likely never know for sure. The year before he died, Colonel Bruce Hampton told Arts ATL, "I never plan anything, good, bad, or ugly. I just go with it. I must say that I've always just wanted to play music. Not work music, not earn music, just play music and make joyful noise. And I don't know if it's good or bad, but I keep doing it. Show up and play." According to CNN, Hampton was known as the granddaddy of the jam scene, and the respect other musicians had for him was clear by how many showed up to jam with him at his 70th birthday concert in 2017. It was the very end of the performance when Hampton dropped to his knees, then laid on the stage. The audience just thought he was playing around, as did the other musicians, who kept playing as Hampton lay there, suffering a massive heart attack. It took several minutes for anyone to realize something was very wrong. However, according to his friends, it's exactly what Hampton would have wanted. Rolling Stones keyboardist Chuck Leavell, who was on stage with Hampton at the time, said, "A poetic exit." And I'm sure if he had written the script himself, that would have been the last page of the last chapter. Additionally, Hampton's former bandmate Jeff Mojer posted on Facebook that he, quote, "could have never imagined a more joyful departure." In the US, the day the music died was the plane crash that killed Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper. But in Ireland and Northern Ireland, that phrase refers to July 31st, 1975, when 3 members of the popular group the Miami Showband were murdered. Show bands were huge on the island at the time. They would travel around playing concerts and regularly cross the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom. Unfortunately, the Miami Showband did this in the 1970s, right in the middle of the sectarian violence known as the Troubles.
Showband scene was fantastic because people were living in the Troubles and it was a release for them.
When the band's van was pulled over, they thought it was a checkpoint, a common occurrence at the time. What they didn't know was it was a fake army patrol made up of Ulster Defense Regiment and Ulster Volunteer Force members. What took the event from purely tragic to bizarre is that the Ulster men didn't plan on killing the band, but instead to place a bomb on their bus that would explode once they were across the border in Ireland. However, it exploded while it was being attached, killing 2 of the Ulster men. The remaining assailants then started shooting at the band, killing lead singer Fran O'Toole, guitarist Tony Garrity, and trumpeter Brian McCoy. 2 other members were injured but survived the massacre. The incident effectively put an end to Irish show bands crossing the border to play in Northern Ireland.